Space, the final frontier. Well, okay, not really. All right, take two. Here in the Mitten State, welcome to Code 47, bringing you all things Star Trek, spanning the quadrants, the best thing since the neutral zone.
Hey, gang, welcome back to the Code 47 podcast on the Secret Friends Unite podcasting network. I am Charlie Carden, your Trek Lord of West Michigan, joined as always by my number one in the number two seat, as it were, Peter Stein.
Hey.
And we have an awesome guest. We have a new guest slash, I hope to be returning host, because this guy, I've loved talking to him for a couple of minutes, and I'm going to get your name right on the first blush. It's John Orquiola.
Almost.
Dang it!
You missed a syllable. Orquiola. Say it fast.
Orquiola. I wrote down Orquiola, and I'm looking right at it, and then it came up. But anyway, John is the senior Star Trek writer with ScreenRant.
Yeah.
So I'm psyched. I've been a fan of your stuff for a very long time. So it is awesome to have you here. So thank you for joining us.
Oh, man, thank you so much for having me. This is such a great invitation to have. I mean, first of all, I love talking Star Trek. I love hanging out on podcasts with awesome people. And this is going to be fun.
Oh, my gosh. This is giving us a lot to live up to. This is, of course, episode 170. And we got a great show for you. We're going to be talking about a little bit of news, a little bit of sad news. And then we're going to dive into the recently released documentary, Beam Me Up Sulu, about an awesome fan film that was made in 1985 that actually starred a TOS actor. And that I thought was an absolutely wonderful story. And then John will leave us, and Peter and I will jump into our ongoing segment of Top 5, Bottom 5, where we're going to take on Star Trek The Next Generation. But before I do that, I got to get into what I always call the Paying the Bills segment, where I talk about, and it's a happy segment, where I talk about the wonderful people on our Secret Friends Unite Patreon over at patreon.com/Secret Friends Unite. These are the folks that get exclusive programming, such as our ongoing series, The Facts Geek Life, where Peter and I are talking about Ron Moore's Battlestar Galactica, one of our absolute favorites. We're starting to wind that down. And my wife, April, and I have a great Bad Movies podcast that comes out once a month. But all of our shows come out early on our Discord, early on our Patreon, and we do have some perks for our Discord as well. This is the way it works. Your first week is free. Do keep in mind you can also just join and just be a free member and just get updates. I would love to see some people at least try us out that way. That would be awesome. But you get free content for a week. Your first month, half off, and then you stay on board for as little as $2 a month. It's, going back over almost approaching 15 years of great content that you would find there, backlog. So we'd absolutely love to see you there. Again, patreon.com/Secret Friends Unite. We would love to see you there. All right. I'm going to turn the microphone over to our guest because this gentleman wrote this article that I'm going to talk about, but we all know, and we talked at great length in our last episode when Ellie Littlechild was with us, about the end of Starfleet Academy. Of course, we've known about the end of Strange New Worlds for several weeks now. But I titled this, The Last Trekker Out the Door, Please Turn Out the Lights, because the sets of these two iconic shows are being struck. And as of yesterday, we're recording this on a Saturday, are being sold off. So, John, tell me a little bit about kind of what you ran into when you were doing this article.
Well, I think it was Trek Central that posted it on social media. But yes, as we all know, Starfleet Academy was canceled a couple of weeks ago. And so those sets are now coming down, which is really heartbreaking, right? Those are some of the most beautiful sets, the biggest sets ever built for Star Trek. And then also the Strange New World sets, which have been in storage since they wrapped in December, which everybody's kind of hoping could possibly be transitioned into a spinoff, which, something that Akiva Goldsman and Henry Alonzo Myers teased a lot over the last year. So those sets are being struck down as well. So it's newsworthy just because it's symbolic of how this era of Star Trek, the Alex Kurtzman era of Paramount Plus, seems to literally be over. I mean, it's literally coming down. It's being torn apart as we speak and being auctioned off as we speak. I believe the auction's on Friday. I think you have to be like a Toronto resident or a Canadian resident to participate in the auction. But some lucky people are going to get pieces of that set. And yeah, it's heartbreaking. It's just heartbreaking. Just Star Trek, and so visually and so like literally. Obviously,
Right.
Star Trek's not dead. It'll come back. It always does. It's a forever franchise.
Right.
But this era seems to literally be ending. And so, it was newsworthy. It was newsworthy because it's
Right.
It's symbolic of this lovely time, this last decade we had of Star Trek coming to an end.
Right. I mean, I'm trying to remember because, Peter's a little bit younger than me, and he wasn't watching Enterprise when Enterprise ended. John, I don't know kind of what your background is. That was something I failed to ask you. I definitely want to get,
Sure.
maybe we'll take a break in between and you can give us your Trek background story after we wrap up talking about this. But, I was, I've been a Trek weekly watcher since the early 90s, since late TNG, though I watched TNG when it first came on. And I was glued to Voyager and DS9 and Enterprise weekly, taping it on my VHS tape, and watching and rewatching when the DVDs came out in the early 2000s. But I don't remember this level of communication or fanfare. When Enterprise ended, it was canceled, and then you just never heard anything about it. And then we had 12 years that it wasn't on TV, and the time in between, we obviously had the J.J. Abrams film era. But so since I'm talking to a qualified professional in the Trek journalism world,
so.
What's your thought around what comes next? What's even just your base impression?
I mean, what seems to be happening, and this has been borne out by people like Robert Picardo, who's openly talked about it, is that it seems like Star Trek's going to go on a break. It's just going to lie dormant for a while. It seems to be what everybody's preparing for. At least the people who have currently making Star Trek or have just made Star Trek. Everybody just seems to be thinking like, it's just going to kind of sit on the shelf for a while, and then it'll come back. I think it'll come back as movies first. I think that's kind of what's being prioritized over at Paramount Skydance, is that it's the Star Trek IP is part of the overall master plan to have more theatrical films made by Paramount. And so I think that's kind of what's in active development. And I think that'll be the first thing we see is some sort of new movie. And I also think, since the plan is to have it unattached to previous Star Trek, because I would think the new ownership, the new leadership is looking at 1,000 episodes, 60 years of canon, and we're like, that is a lot, and I think we want to get away from that. So I think if not a reboot, then something just really kind of in a whole different space, literally perhaps, of Star Trek, with a new crew and a new ship, something, and that's probably what we're going to get before we even get a new TV show. That's my guess. Okay,
gotcha. Peter, what about you? What's your take
on this whole thing, or what I think they're going to go next?
You tell me.
Okay.
I'm open.
So, I didn't know that they were auctioning off the sets. That's interesting.
Right. I just don't remember that from Enterprise. I remember the time like, they're breaking down pieces off of the Enterprise set, or maybe it was when they wrapped up Voyager, because there were parts of the Voyager set that had been in place since 1978 when they were doing Phase 2, which didn't move forward. And I'm sure there were still pieces on the Enterprise set there, because it was that 18-year legacy from 87 to 2005. I do the math right, but it was almost 20 years where they were using and reusing and stuff, and then but nobody said, and now now you can buy the helm console off the NX-01. Like, you just didn't hear about that.
I mean, I don't know. My guess is they're probably not selling like massive pieces of the set, because they've been, at least from what I've seen, they've gotten better about holding on to stuff for later use, just because time travel and crap. You want to be able to recreate.
Well, and it was not long after that they had the big Christie's auction. I think I'm remembering in the late aughts, 2000, 2008.
But even there, they weren't selling off like big pieces of set. They were just selling like I think like
costumes,
the panel that got pulled out in A Mirror Darkly, and like a couple other things like that.
Right.
But I think that they may have learned from Picard season 3 that you want to hold on to some stuff.
Right. The way they built that incredible set.
I mean, it's awesome that they did, but I'm just saying, like, I think that may have been a learning experience of like, might be good to hold on to some pieces for whatever reason.
Right.
Anyway, that random thought that popped in my head when you were talking about that.
Sure. Yeah.
But as where they're going next, I agree that it's probably films. That's what the rumbles seem to be. There does seem to be a little bit of potential movement on United, the Captain Archer thing.
I did. John, did you?
Insofar as there's an IMDb page now, which
Did you hear about that, John?
interesting.
I did.
Yeah.
I don't know that it means anything, but it's there.
That's very true. Because I looked it over because I have IMDb Pro, which I'm sure, John, you probably do as well for research purposes. And it was there, and it didn't really flesh things out, but I did click follow on it because I'd love to get updated if something happens with it. But it just seems so out of left field, but it did make Star Trek news.
We've been hearing about it a bit recently, so maybe. But I'm not one to just sit here and go like, well, we know because they did that. We have no idea.
Right.
But it's an interesting thing to note. And so I'm curious to see if clearly they're doing films, but I'm curious if they're also going to do like, a limited series or something with this and just see and float it and see how it goes. I don't know.
Limited series would be, to your point, would be more challenging if they're like, well, we built this built like the enormous sets, as John was saying, like that, that atrium set that they built for Starfleet Academy is incredible, and it's obviously if it's as big or bigger than like the Promenade set was on DS9, you know what I mean? So it's very all encompassing. But yeah, for them to be like, we're going to do a limited series and then tear everything apart. I mean, there is of course the motion wall, which we saw in like the Mandalorian and stuff, which is different. So, but yeah, I tend to tilt more in John's direction. We know that there is a film that has been slated that has a creative team with it. It's been promised
Dungeons
to be
and Dragons people involved.
Yeah, John Francis Daly, who was I don't know if you ever watched or loved Freaks and Geeks, which was a show in the early 2000s that didn't make it, but it was absolutely terrific. He was one of the cast members, as was Linda Cardellini, and so absolutely good. So yeah, I'm with you. And it was supposed to be this film was supposed to be it's something like you've never seen before. So Star Trek is the phoenix that rises from the ashes. And none of us is ever going to believe that it's really dead, but it does need, like Captain America, it's going to go into the ice for a little while.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And the thing is, with John, as you mentioned, 1,000 hours or 1,000 segments, segments of content to talk about. We'll still be making this show because on this show we focus on talking about episodes, and we got plenty. So I'll be okay. If they go back and retool and they give us a great movie in 2 or 3 years. My wife and I will still go on the Star Trek cruise and we'll still love the hell out of it. I mean, Star Trek is just going to continue to be a huge part of our lives. So yeah. All right. So now I'll back it up again. Back to you, John. The question I should have asked in the first point. Walk us through your Star Trek fandom origin story. How did you get into Star Trek?
Oh, sure. I love talking my origin story. So I did not grow up a Star Trek fan. I know so many people who, have all these fond memories of like, oh yeah, I watched Star Trek with my sister, with my grandfather and my dad. We used to sit around and watch it on Saturday nights, watch TNG. That wasn't me. I grew up loving Star Wars. As a little kid, I would just the first movie I remember seeing in the theater was The Empire Strikes Back, and
me too. I was 4. Me and my dad and my brother.
Yeah,
me too, but it was the special edition.
Yeah.
So I did not, and so soon after that, my parents showed me the Wrath of Khan on VHS or whatever, because it had Star in the title. Why wouldn't I love it? And at 5 or 6 years old, I was not ready for Wrath of Khan. I was not ready for a story about friendship, old age, and death, and and all these things. It didn't visually pop to me like Star Wars did. So for the longest time, I thought Star Trek sucked, and that ran through my teenage. That ran through my teenage years, my friends in high school were Trekkies. They loved Next Generation. I remember sitting on the school bus, listening to my friends talk about the Best of Both Worlds finale, and talking about what's going to happen to Picard, and he got assimilated. Is Riker going to be the new captain? And I remember just rolling my eyes, going, "You guys are such effing nerds, right?"
Right.
Right. So flash forward a couple of years, and we're in college now, and my friend Sean was in Bowdoin College. I stayed with him for the weekend at his frat, and I find out, to my horror, that his frat on Saturday nights watches TNG, and And I'm like, oh, God, we're college guys. What are we doing? You're sitting around watching Star Trek? And, and like, no, this is what we do. So, I was a big jerk. I sat down, my arms crossed, I was like, all right, I'll watch your TNG. And it wasn't even a good episode, right? Like, it was like a season 7 episode. And my recollection is that it was Homeward. It was the one with Paul Sorvino. My friend Sean, it was.
Oh, sure.
The one that had the exact same plot as Insurrection, ultimately, like it was, relocating a
pretty much.
Yeah, on a holodeck. And then, but my friend Sean says it was actually a different episode. And I always forget which one he says it is. I'll believe him, but my memory is that it was Homeward. In any case.
Was it the one with the train? Because that's pretty bad, too.
Oh, God. Emergence?
That one.
Yeah.
Or Masks. Yeah. I'm going to talk, when we get into our second segment, I'll be talking about season 7 of TNG, but I digress.
But it was, it was Patrick Stewart. It was Picard. And it was like the way he spoke and like the intelligence and the eloquence and the language. I was just really intrigued by Picard. And by the time that TNG little episode was over, even though it wasn't very good, I was so interested in Picard. Like I went home and back then in Boston, it was like it was the early 90s. So Star Trek was on WLVI 56, and they had both TNG, DS9, and the original series on repeats.
Sure.
So I bought
the Troi-Fecta.
I bought VHS tapes. I plugged the program to VCR, and I spent the summer of '94 watching Star Trek, just learning it. And also, I bought Michael Okuda's Star Trek Encyclopedia, the chronology, history of the future. I poured through those the entire summer, and then I find out that there's going to be a movie where Picard meets Kirk in November, Generations, right? And so I was
right. That was my freshman year of college. It was because I graduated in '94. Yeah. So it was that fall that Generations came out. It was a big deal.
Yeah, so that was my first Star Trek movie in the theater, and I was all hyped up. I went with my now I was part of the Star Trek gang that I used to make fun of. And we all went to see Generations together, and I sat there and watched Kirk die, and I loved it, and they hated it because I didn't know better.
Yeah, right. Oh, they killed off the old guy. He's kind of like Old Yeller, right? So yeah.
Now I understand. Of course, I understand the problems with Generations, but I still have a sentimental love for it. But back then, I thought it was great. And then I just kept on watching Star Trek. I went into DS9 right after that, and DS9 became my favorite Star Trek. It still is.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it is.
Same. They will never, and I've said it, and it's a hill I'll die on. They will never reach that again. That's the top of the Paramount is DS9. They just never will.
Absolutely, and I respect everybody's opinion on Star Trek. Everybody loves Star Trek for a different reason. Everybody loves Star Trek for a different reason. But to me, if I hear you say DS9 is my favorite, I'm like, okay, you're an aficionado. You know a little bit.
You get it.
Yeah, you're at a slightly.
And you get it.
You're at a slightly different level here. So yeah. So,
right. Oh, I totally agree.
But so that's basically So I've just been watching Star Trek ever since. For Enterprise, for instance, I was a day oneer. I was super interested in the prequel. Like I love the old commercials of that had that song, "If I Could and I Would." Oh
yeah, The Calling. I remember those commercials, which it wasn't a part of the show, but there was a different pop song that was obviously the theme. Yeah.
Like that, the whole with the astronaut spacesuits, I was totally sold on it, And so I was a day oneer for Enterprise, and that show also had its share of problems, but I watched it through all the way to the end. And so, so Star Trek kind of lay dormant for a while. I mean, I always watched it and stuff, but during that 12-year period, except for the Abrams movies, life moved on, and then. ScreenRant kind of happened pretty much by accident. I was kind of in the film business peripherally. I went to film school, and then I made friends at BU Film School. We all kind of went off and we formed a production company. We made short films. We made music videos and stuff. But all throughout that time, I started a website called Back of the Head, which is just for me. It was just a little blog for me. And my exercise was, because I grew up reading Roger Ebert's movie reviews, and he was kind of like, all my film theory and my film knowledge came from reading his reviews and watching movies and then trying to understand movies the way he approached them. So I started, for my own benefit, I just started reviewing every movie I saw. I wrote like humorous reviews. Some were full length or some were short. And I just wrote movie reviews for myself on this website. I didn't care if anyone read them, but it was all just really for me. But 10 years later, it turns out that I had a body of work of just consistently writing movie reviews. And then so we flash forward to New Year's Eve 2016, about to become 2017. I'm home in Boston. I'm not doing anything. I had no plans. And then I get a tweet. I see on Twitter, my friend Albert Ching, who was the managing editor at the time of CBR, Comic Book Resources, sends a tweet. And he's like, hey, my friend Hannah at ScreenRant is looking for writers. She's great. You should work for her. So I was like, I'd never even heard of ScreenRant. But I had nothing to do. So I looked it up. And I was like, all right, maybe I'll apply for this. So I wrote up a cover letter. And I picked out 3 reviews from the back of the head that I thought were good. Sent an email, then promptly forgot about it. Then 3 weeks later, I'm at the Sprint store. I'm getting a new cell phone. And right before I turn off my phone and turn it in, I get an email from Hannah Shaw Williams at ScreenRant. And it was like, all this, it had a contract. And it was like, hey, I want to hire you. I was like, all right. So
cool, I'm in.
So my oldest friend Sean, the guy who I went to the frat house with and got me into Star Trek to begin with, he's a U.S. attorney in Miami now, a assistant U.S. attorney. He's kind of like my lawyer, but he's also like my first nerd friend. So I sent him the email with the contract. I was like, what do you think about this? Should I And he emails me back 10 years later. He's like, you're not doing anything. If I were you, I'd sign it. So I did. And then 3 weeks later, I started working for ScreenRant. And then 10 years, now I've been there 10 years.
That's wild.
Yeah.
That's wild.
I just grew up with them, like I'm a homegrown talent, I guess, with ScreenRant. So I started out just writing feature articles. It was the original contract was 10 articles a month. And now I'm way past 5,000 articles.
Wow. Yeah, I saw that when I was reading your bio. I'm like, damn, 5,000. I know. That's what I was telling Peter because about having you on, how excited I was. And I said, you've read this guy's stuff. It's unavoidable that something that he's done is fallen in front of you, so.
I've inundated everything.
Yeah, and it's a good thing. That's a good thing. Well, cool. Well, that is awesome. So I'm super psyched to have you on board as part of our squad. Well, let's jump into the first segment of our show, talking about Beam Me Up SULU. Now, we reported on this originally earlier this year, maybe it was late last year, that there was a documentary coming out reflecting. I'll read the little description here. So, in 1985, Star Trek's George Takei joined. Let me ask a professional. I hear George's name pronounced differently all the time. What is the official pronunciation of George's name?
Official? I don't know. I thought it was Takei.
I always it was Takei. As long as it's not definitive, I guess I can mispronounce it. And then I've met him a couple times. I have a great picture of me with him in 1992. Here in Grand Rapids, which was an even smaller town back then. I was 16. It was right before Star Trek. Maybe it was 91. It was right before Star Trek 6 came out. And he was at a little con at a hotel here in town signing, and I got him to sign a picture of Sulu with the rapier sword. And my mom snapped a picture from the end of this table of me leaning over and while he was signing it. Absolutely great picture. Yeah. So he was the first Star Trek celeb I ever met.
Nice. You know who mine was Mark Lennard. I ran into him
nice.
In New York City, 6th Avenue, 13th Street. In 1996, I was working at a Mailboxes, etc., which it turned out to be Celebrity Central because everybody used that Mailbox, etc., as their post office in the West Village where all the celebs lived. So Mark Lennard came and made me mail something, and I was just like, whoa! I was the only one who flipped out because Sarah.
And two things. I never knew his last name was pronounced Lennard, but he also, he's from Chicago, grew up in South Haven, Michigan, which is my mom's hometown. It's about an hour from here.
Oh, cool.
Which I never knew until my mom revealed to me somewhat recently. Well, did you know Spock's father grew up here in South Haven? Such a small world. My wife and I were just in New York City last week. I hadn't been in many, many years, and she'd never been. We went for her birthday and absolutely fell in love with New York City, but I digress. We can talk about that at a later time. But anyway, yes, George joined a group of dedicated fans to make a student film that mysteriously vanished. They didn't talk a lot about that in the documentary. But Beam Me Up SULU uncovers this lost film and celebrates the diversity and inclusion at the heart of the show, meaning Star Trek. And again, I had certainly never heard of it. And I did come to find out because I was sitting there watching it again this morning with my wife, April, and she said, I said, and I was putting it in my notes as we were going, and I said, is this film actually out there somewhere? And it turns out it's been out there since 2002 or 2022. So I have it queued up in my YouTube to watch, but
I watched it this afternoon.
This was a 90-minute doco, and the film itself was 23 minutes. So they had a lot to say, which I absolutely appreciate. But yeah, let's jump on into it. So very loosey goosey. But John, take us through kind of your thoughts about this doco.
Yeah, I was very surprised by it, honestly. I knew nothing about this documentary up until recently. And so I actually tried to, I got a screener of it because we were trying to secure an interview with George Takei, but we missed the window for when he was doing press, unfortunately. So I haven't actually gotten to interview him yet. The only time I met him was very, very briefly at STLV. I think it was 23, where we were in the elevator together.
I was there in 23. That was the year that I went. Yeah.
Yeah. So I had like 10 seconds in the elevator with him, but I didn't I was fanboying out so bad.
That's how
I could barely say
that's how I met. Yeah. That's where I met Lolita Faggio, which I have talked with her since then, was in an elevator in the hotel going down. And I talked to her briefly about the Voyager documentary, which we still have not seen.
But the Voyager documentary is excellent. We could talk about that as well. But yeah, I thought this was
I would love to.
Was really fun. Again, I had no idea what this short film was. I didn't know it existed, but I thought they did a great job fleshing it out by also telling a lot of George's life story, but then also his impact as an Asian American pioneer actor and his importance to that community. And then just also as a treatise on the joys of fandom, which for me is also really interesting because cosplay is something I'm still wrapping my head around. I don't have the switch in my head that makes me want to dress up and as my favorite character. As big of a nerd as I am, I have never ever wanted to wear a costume and and be a Starfleet officer. That's just not me. But I know so many people who do, and the creativity and the dedication to it. It fascinates me. So the fact that this documentary also celebrated that aspect of fandom, I thought was really, really fun and interesting.
Peter and I are very avid customers. I mean, he, on the other side of me are some jackets hanging up and stuff. But he and I actually have. I was telling you before we started rolling about this Voyager photo shoot we did in Chicago a couple of years ago in Ann Arbor, Michigan. Next weekend, we're doing a kind of high-end TNG shoot because I found for the first time ever a vendor overseas that makes a absolutely beautiful TNG collared two-piece. I bought 3 of them. Peter bought 3 of them, so we're kind of mix and match. But yeah, ever since I grew the beard. I did a shoot at my friend's studio a couple of months ago. I get people asking me if I had a guy. Here's a great example. I got off of the train from New York City back to Washington D.C., which is where my mom lives, and I had a guy who walked up to me because I was wearing. I have a windbreaker that just has Star Trek stuff on it, and the guy walked up to me and asked me if there was a show in town and if I was Jonathan Frakes. I shit you not.
Wow.
So yeah, and that was one thing I noticed. So this guy's named Stan Wu. Seems like a super cool guy, definitely one of us. But I loved, and I didn't know if I got from the film. And first of all, I love right off the bat because they show a vintage clip of him talking about, hey, our film is filled with beautiful people, beautiful women, blah, blah. I think he was being so much tongue in cheek, but I don't know if he designed the uniforms, but they were this kind of cool blend of the kind of colored TOS tops, but they had a stripe on the shoulder that was like Wrath of Khan. It was like the Monster Maroon.
Yeah.
And then it had
it was also the motion picture epaulette stretched out. So it was kind of a mix of the two.
I thought that was super creative. So again, I don't know that it was Stan per se who designed it because I know he had a different guy who directed it, and looking at the credits, it sounded like Stan did some of the producing, and then he talked about how his dad funded the whole thing, and he said, well, my parents were, off the boat, refugees from I think in his first language was Cantonese, and he didn't really understand Star Trek, but he just really wanted to support me because he knew that this was what I really wanted to do, which I just, it's very empowering, to think about all of our, hopefully all of our parents who have supported us in various things that we've done. And that was one of the things that just really kind of touched me. So, Peter, I know you had some different thoughts. You reached out to me after you watched it, and you said I didn't love it. But you said you weren't gonna. I said that's like on the show, always we've had great luck with kind of embracing IDIC. You know, if we've got different ideas, and we're all great at being respectful about them. But I'm curious. I liked this very much. This was like an 11 for me. I thought it was so great. So I'm like, what could it, Peter, have not liked? So I mean, tell me about how you felt about it.
So I think it was a difference of expectation for me, because I didn't read what they had wanted to have the doco about. I was like, doco about fan film, cool. So for me, it was talking about things that I had already heard and didn't want to know. Like, I didn't want to hear again, and didn't tell me the things that I wanted to hear. Like,
about fan films.
What I wanted to hear about. Yeah. So like, I mean, the history of George Takei and like like all of that, interesting. All of it interesting. Some of it out of context. And so it was like, okay, I kind of get why this is here, but also not. And then there wasn't as much about the creative process for making the film.
Yeah, I agree with that.
So there wasn't. So that's why I then later went and watched the film myself afterwards to be like, okay, what the hell is this about? What's the story? What characters do we have? Why should I care? Why is Sulu in it? Like, those were all the details that were missing. And so for me, it felt kind of a puff piece of like, here's what we think Star Trek is about, rather than telling us about the film. So, because we heard a little bit about like why the film went missing. Okay, cool. Maybe give us a little bit more. Here's a little bit about how we did the filming. Maybe give us a little bit more details. Maybe, give us a little bit more of where you were, why you chose that place. I mean, probably it's the one of, well, it was free. Yeah,
it felt like probably in like Malibu Creek and Malibu Creek State Park in LA, like where they filmed MASH, because it's probably free and accessible, or that kind of thing.
Or like how like everyone's got like a paragraph to say about the Vasquez Rocks if they're there, So it's like, you could tell us a little bit about that. Maybe tell us about like why the uniforms were the way they were. How did you get the props? Did you make them yourselves?
Right.
I like the granular details, and especially since like the film went poof, because I remember I was on the internet looking at fan films early 2000s, which is about when this resurfaced, when John contacted him and then got the files, got the actual film, and then transferred it to digital and then worked on it. So like, I would have liked to know, what did you use to transfer it? Did you do like, what did you do to like fix it, or did you have to do that? And like, watching it, I recognized a bunch of the different people from the fan community who had worked on it. Like, I recognized Sam Cockings. I know these people. And so it's like, why didn't we talk about how we came up with the design of the ship? Why didn't we talk about like why we decided to go to Neutral Zone Studios and who did this and who did that and that sort of thing.
Right.
So when it comes to like talking about the fan process, I wanted to hear more about like how we made the film, why we made the film, why it's cool, and like just how it blossomed into the other fan film stuff. Because they talked like, right at the end, they were like, this is the seminal fan film, and it led to all these others. Well, then maybe tell us about some of the other ones. Because like, that's what, because usually when you're talking about like seminal things, you're like, and here's the things that it spawned. So that's where I take issue with this as a documentary, is that it wasn't focused on the topic. It was like, let's tell you about what we think Star Trek is about. I don't care. I already know. I want to know. I know about. I want to know about this film
because they had.
I can see that
because they had George in the fan film, and they secured George for the documentary. They made the movie, and he's the biggest name. He's the most recognizable name. He's the one. He's the person you could use to sell documentary. They made it 90% about George and his and then kind of fashioned it together to be about fandom and then also about the film, and and kind of hope that mishmash would kind of translate into a full narrative, which I completely get what you're saying. Like I didn't even think about that. Like, you're right, we really didn't learn much about the film at all. I
was very, very peripheral.
And so I had to go.
I didn't even know it was out there until like I said, April said, here's a link, and I'm like, I thought this was like because I also read an article that said, "Oh, and this film is out there now." So I jumped into the article, John. I hope it wasn't written by you. I'm not saying, I hope not, but somebody said like this film is out here now, and I'm like, I go to it, and what they were talking about is a documentary. So I'm like, well, this is not actually saying that I can go watch this film. I didn't even know it was just 23 minutes, and it hadn't been finished until the guy came on, and I was approached. The guy that you said who did the final production piece of it, I was approached in 2009, and I said it would take a couple of years, and now it's 2022, and I'm finally wrapping it up because that's when it got published. So yeah, you're right. It does feel stitched together while George's story is compelling, and I agree. But I think they're two different stories in a lot of different ways.
Yeah, and the thing is, like, it doesn't like, and I think part of it is they couldn't tell you exactly what the story is about because. Spoilers. The story in the fan film is not particularly clear. Mm-hmm. And now, to be completely fair, it is a student film.
Right.
Like these are the kinds of things that happen. I'm not bashing. It's just this is the way it is.
I got the impression that was the fan film complete because I got the impression watching the documentary they didn't have all of it. So I had to I had to watch it myself to figure out. Like I said, this was why I was irritated because I couldn't figure like what was going on. So I watched it, and so there was 50% of the final product was from 1985, and 50% of the final product was from 2015. So there was the only shots that were from 1985. I mean, were like the money shots, the cool ones were like with Takei on this. On the planet, and then there was one that had clearly been rotoscoped to have the actual bridge behind him because they, had a neutral zone studio so they could frame it correctly. So they rotoscoped him into the bridge. And then there was some shots at Starbase 7 with James.
I wrote his name down. Hold on. Anyway, Takagi from Die Hard.
Yeah, I can see his name. I just can't pronounce it. Yeah. So Admiral Nagura.
James Shigura. I've got it right here in my notes.
Yeah, and it was just like that in the doco. I was like, oh, that's neat. Like that story of how they got him was really cool.
I like how they used
TAS TAS style to tell you these kinds of stories.
I love that all throughout. I also really loved during the process of Shigura where they had he passed away in 2014. It did say in the notes, but they had his friend watching it, and she was, instead of her just saying, "Oh my God, it was so," she was like, I said to him at the time, "Why the fuck did you make this movie, man?" I
thought she was his wife. I thought she was.
Yeah, it just said friend. It said it just said friend. So yeah. But yeah, it was just like, I think that's funny because a real friend would ask you a question not like that. They wouldn't just be like, "Oh my God, it's so great." We'd be like, "Why are you in this piece of shit student film?"
Yeah, so when he got the film from James Wu, he was talking to him about like what state is it in, da 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 da, and then there was a conversation in the doco about like, oh well, we had some shots that we still wanted to finish, and I was like, okay, pick up shots sort of deal. And then when I finally watched it, it's like it's 50% where it's a whole new cast on the bridge of the Yorktown doing all of this stuff. And it's well done, and like they letterboxed it, they put the grain in, like they did, but you can tell that it was filmed with a different camera. Because it reminds
me of
there's a little bit of, because of the age of the footage, there's a slight I can't remember the exact term, like distillation of the color, and so you see like one layer of pixels and then another layer of pixels just slightly off from the 1985 footage because it's not like a professional camera.
It reminds me of, I just rewatched an episode of The Simpsons the other day, the story of Jebediah Springfield, where they just kind of dumb it down and it looks like, it's like Bigfoot wearing a watch, and it looked like where it's like, he's riding the bull and they go back and forth, and then in one shot you see the guy pushing it.
So but like the name of the fan film is A Time to Heal, and so like the basic premise is like something goes wrong, this James Wu's character's fiance gets blown out, explosive decompression, and so she dead, and then a year later and he's on this planet just kind of working it out in his head, I guess, and then bad guys show up, shit happens, and then that's kind of it. And so
I got none of that from watching this documentary.
yeah, and so they're
you're right.
and so
kinda like,
the final line from George is like, "Oh, he just needs the time to heal." I'm like, where? With what?
yeah.
So like
I get
again, it was a passion project. It was work in progress, and like things got lost and what have you. And like if there was supposed to be
Right.
something tagged at the end, they just didn't have time to do it because. And he explained a little bit of what happened was grades and such.
Yeah.
But it does definitely feel very unfinished. So
Right.
like it's definitely worth a watch because of like just the uniqueness of what it is and how it came together and all of that stuff. But it's definitely it's definitely one of them. So
Whoops, Peter, did we lose you?
yeah.
Oh my gosh, that was weird. We're back. We were recording in the evening, and it just straight up locked up. And John is a prince. He came back with us. He's 12 hours different from us, but still managed it. He's up, I'm sure, way past his bedtime. But anyway, Peter was talking. I don't know if Peter remembers what he was saying, but it was definitely some good stuff. But we're pretty much at the end anyway. So let's just do some quick final thoughts, John. Some final thoughts, if you can remember what you talked about before.
The Beat Me Up Sulu documentary. One of the things I liked is at the very end, to kind of piggyback a little bit on what Peter was saying, is that I did appreciate that everybody made it clear at the end of the documentary that the short film itself was actually not very good. Like they weren't pretending that it was actually some perfect work of art and dancing around it. Everybody kind of just said,
Right.
It actually isn't a good movie, but we appreciate the enthusiasm, we appreciate the fandom, we appreciate what it was. What the filmmaker, I forget his name, was trying to say.
It was Stan Wu, I think it was Stan.
Yeah,
Wu.
Stan
It was
Wu,
Stan.
yeah.
I think it was Stan. Yeah.
And I also like a couple other things. I liked, as an Asian myself, I appreciated George Takei pointing out, which I never thought about, was that George, as Sulu, did not speak with an Asian accent as Sulu.
Right. Yeah,
Jack
I like that
has a
too.
Russian accent. Obviously, Scotty has a Scottish accent. But George Takei and Sulu just
Which were both
American.
And they were both fake accents, which is hilarious because Jimmy
Right.
Doohan is Canadian and Walter Koenig is actually from Chicago. So it's like not a Russian.
Exactly. And the last thing I also is that I thought it was interesting that George Takei, when Sulu was scripted in the Naked Time to have a samurai sword, he changed it to a foil, not wanting to play into the stereotype of the Japanese samurai. And now that's actually an indelible part of the Sulu character. Even John Cho had the sword fight in J.J. Abrams' movie just because that's what Sulu does now. So those are the things I appreciate about the documentary.
Good deal. Peter, I know you got cut off midstream, but any other thoughts before we wrap it up?
I thought it was, decent in getting at least an idea of the early time of fan films. I wish we'd done a little bit more of like maybe teeing up like, hey, other fans have done some great stuff over the years, and maybe hinting at some of those, especially because Takei came back to do Star Trek Phase 2.
Yeah, that's right.
I forget it had its previous name at that point, but like he went back on and did that.
Yeah.
So like maybe highlighting like, hey, Takei did come back and do more fan stuff, and other people came back and did more fan stuff. Like it's not dead.
Right.
So maybe a little bit more of that for me would have been nice. But,
I hear you.
I mean, for what it was fine.
Yeah, I enjoyed it too, but it did very much seem like it was a flimsy setup to what ended up being a great doco about, Asian culture and film, which I thought was awesome. Definitely enjoyed that. But yeah, it is funny how they were self-deprecating in their own way, coming back, James Segura's friend who said, "Oh my God, this thing is a piece of shit," and having her laugh through that. So I love that, like when we were talking about when we were watching the Center Seat documentary, which we wrapped up talking about Nacelle Company's doco, is that it was very honest. It was not a corporate documentary. It was something that was made by people that wanted to talk about a genuine experience and kind of some of the warts and some of the ugly stuff that's part of real life. So I appreciated that, and I liked having a light shown on that as well. So I'd highly recommend it. So for anyone who wants to go check it out yourself, it is new and it is available video on demand. So you can get that from Prime or Fandango. I'm sure Apple, a lot of those other places. You can rent it or you can buy it. I actually ended up buying it and I shared it with Peter just because I had a voucher and it was pretty cheap for me. But yeah, I would highly recommend it. Go check it out in one of those places. If you're listening to this in the distant future, definitely feel free to look around and see if it's gone to a regular streamer because it'll be out there somehow. But yeah, God, all right, John, this has been amazing. Welcome to the family. You are now part of the Secret Friends Unite gallery of artists. Yeah, I love it. I love it. So yeah, look forward to having you back in the future. Where do people find you out there in the meantime if they're looking to engage and talk about Star Trek or anything that you talk about?
Well, I mean, my work is at ScreenRant, screenrant.com. I'm probably, if you're reading something about Star Trek, I probably wrote it. We have other people who write about Star Trek too, but I'm pretty much the main voice of that, especially in terms of covering the new releases, the new TV shows, and eventually, hopefully, the new movies. And in terms of socials, I am at Back of the Head.
Right. On all the big socials. Gotcha. Very cool. Well, awesome. Thank you again, man. It's great to have you. Great to meet you. And thanks for making the time being a world away from us. But yeah, we will see you soon. We'll take a little pause here and then we're going to come back and pick up our top 5, bottom 5. Peter and I are going to talk about Star Trek: Next Generation. So we'll be right back, John. We'll see you soon.
All right. Thanks a lot, guys.
You bet. All right, we're back. Having John on was awesome. I'm sure I'll never have the occasion to actually pronounce his name correctly. Give it a try, Peter. I bet your memory's better than mine. Orquiola. Orquiola.
Orquiola. Yep.
Yeah, such a great guy. I'm looking forward to having him back. He said it was funny. Peter and I are going to record shortly here about the first episode of season 4 of For All Mankind, and John is working on the same thing today. So that's awesome. We're definitely in sync. So that's fun. But we're gonna jump back into our segment top 5, bottom 5. We're moving through the series and we're talking about on a personal level 5 episodes that we love the most and 5 episodes that we potentially hate the most. We go back and forth. Peter and I were talking in the kind of mid-roll here about, kind of being like, well, I picked this one, and even though everybody thinks it's great, it's really one of mine. Like, that's legit. But I know on my list, particularly the favorites, I went a little kind of inside, picked ones that I thought were kind of off the beaten path, which is, I mean, that's the purpose of this, you know what I mean? And again, that if someone's like, oh, I'm about to watch TNG, because I run into Trekkers all the time in all the different places we go and things like, oh, I love Star Trek, but I'm just making my way through the shows, and I love Voyager, but now I'm stepping backwards to watch TNG, and I haven't seen it, and I've heard this and I've heard that. And so for those folks out there who are hearing the sound of our voice, take our opinions of this, branch out, watch these episodes, see if you agree with us. And as always, Peter and I were also talking about this in the roll in between. Let us know what you think. We're available, of course, on all socials at Secret Friends Unite. I'm at the C3. Peter's available in the places he'll talk to you about when we get to the end of the show. But as always, secretfriendsunite@gmail.com. Send us a note. Say, hey, I loved your list. I hated your list. You forgot to drop in this, yada, 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 or whatever. Man, we'd love to hear all that stuff.
Why did you put this at your bottom?
Yeah, exactly. But I'll get the ball rolling. So as we did, in the previous 2 segments that we were doing this, we're going to go round robin. If we have one that's in alignment, you might hear us get to the end and saying, hey, do you have any left? Because it could be a little wacky. Yeah. But I'll get started. An episode that I absolutely love, and again, these aren't in any particular order, at least for me, is season 3's The Defector. Absolutely love that. I think it's very serious special effects for almost the first time that we've seen in the series, because we get some beautiful interplay with Romulan ships. We get a couple of cool new ships, or cool new shots of the Enterprise itself, like the complete turn to starboard where they whip around, and then you see a couple of warbirds decloak. We get our second appearance of Andreas Katsoulis as Tomalak. Personally, my favorite Romulan.
He's my favorite Romulan, period.
Yeah, he's absolutely terrific.
Which is why I was so sad that he wasn't in Nemesis.
I know. I don't know if he hadn't passed away at that. I'm not sure if he was still, because he has passed away. I didn't know if it was.
He hadn't. He was busy with Babylon 5, I think.
In the early aughts. Gotcha. Yeah. But moreover than not, this was our first Star Trek appearance of guest actor James Sloyan, who also went on to be Dr. Moira in Deep Space Nine, Odo's surrogate father. and also played an adult version of Alexander in a season 7 episode of this very series, which I'll come back to talk about season 7 in a little bit. But all of the performances in this, from Riker, Troi, Data, certainly Picard, our guest star, Worf, in his just growling disdain for anything related to Romulans, just crushed it for me. And then you had that beautiful holodeck intro. Was that from Henry V? I get my Shakespeare mixed up.
I think that one was, yeah.
Okay, gotcha. Because it's funny, I have a Shakespeare tome upstairs in my bookcase up there. And I took a class in college. Yeah,
it's been a hot second since I've seen that episode, because there's a couple TNG episodes that begin with, like, one is Henry, one is the Tempest. This one might actually be the Tempest.
One is it's not Shakespeare.
No, wait. This one's Henry V.
Okay.
Tempest is Emergence,
which we were talking about being on but we'll get to that. But anyway, absolutely love this episode. This was early season 3, and again, I always like to mention, when it comes to streaming, one of the easiest place to watch most all of the Star Trek series, but certainly the legacy ones, is over on Paramount Plus, however you choose to feel about it politically. If you hate it so much that you can't watch it because you don't like Skydance, whatever, it is available video on demand from Fandango at home, which is how I choose to watch them. Or find the discs. Or better yet, discs are cheaper. That might change someday. If the streaming wars continue, discs might start going back up in price, supply and demand. But I obviously have owned all the discs. I was going to point and say, look, you can see them behind me. But not only can you not see them behind me, but this is audio. But yeah, TNG is a series worth owning no matter what, if you're a Star Trek fan. But anyway, all right, Peter, what's your first one?
Okay. I did not stray from everyone's expectations on this one. First one that I put on my list, because first off the top of my head, is The Best of Both Worlds.
Of course.
It is my favorite Next Generation episode. It is the episode that I remember most clearly as my first episodic memory as a child. Like that moment, and I did not see this live when it aired. I saw this much, much later. But like, 2-3-year-old Peter sitting there watching Picard go, I am Locutus of Borg, and just like, oh my gosh,
yeah, that's some scary nightmare shit. Damn.
Yeah, like, and then just the Mr. Worf, fire to be continued. Like, I just remember there being a lot of excitement about that, but also like, it's not just the hype of that, but like, there's a lot of good character development that goes on through both episodes.
Great Riker stuff, which of course
there's a lot of really, really good Riker stuff. Like, because you're like, why is he still commander of the ship? Shelby is a great foil.
We'll have Elizabeth Dennehy on. We had her years ago as a guest. We're going to have her on again in a few weeks. So you can drill her down all about Shelby.
I can gush about Shelby, but but Shelby is like, in the episode, especially in part 1, she is a pain in the ass, and she's supposed to be.
Time. Right.
And I think that like there's something very, very real about Shelby's ambition versus Riker's like, I like it here.
Yeah.
And then of course, like, you have some really good guest stars, like I forget who he is, but
George Murdoch as it was Admiral Hansen, but he was also the Godhead in Star Trek V.
He was.
I didn't know that for years.
He was also Doc Cottle from the original Battlestar Galactica.
I don't know that his name was Doc Cottle.
It wasn't Cottle, but he was the doctor. He was the doctor in the original Battlestar. So like, we had some really, really good guest stars. The score is amazing. It's one of,
and it had its own album too.
That was the first official Star Trek album that I had.
Yeah.
And like, it's just got some really good pieces of music, introduced some really, really interesting Borg lore that then got developed over time.
Right.
Like the fact that you you can be assimilated as an adult. The Borg don't just have their own kids.
Borg babies. Yeah.
Yeah. And so like, how the collective works, how it affects your mind, and also just delving into the Borg as a force of nature that removes your personhood, and like, that's the reason why the Borg are so scary.
Yeah,
and I think that this episode in particular, like later ones kind of dink around with it, and we can talk about that at some other point. But the way that the Borg are portrayed here as just like, they are unstoppable until there's just like we found a chink in the armor, and that's the only, and it was a fluke, and that's the only way we made it work.
Right.
So and like you look into how it was made, and like the amazing thing of like part 2 was not written when they aired part 1.
Patrick Stewart's beautiful story says, I was driving down the PCH. It was middle of the summer of 1990, and this car pulled up to me at a stoplight. You ruined my summer. Some random person screamed at him and then drove away. I'm like, it's show business.
Yep. So it's just I know that a lot of people will overhype Best of Both Worlds, or even like, well, it's not the best because it's clearly redemption or something. And I think that Best of Both Worlds is, at least for me, it is like probably the best TNG. I mean, there's some others that I also put up there, but like, it's just one of my favorites. There's great starship stuff. There's great technological things. Everybody gets to do something. You don't have characters really get sidelined that much. Maybe Troi just a little bit, but
Wesley, but who cares?
Yeah, but like, but like everybody is involved. It's a full ensemble cast, and you feel the stakes, and so it's just a really really well written story.
Yeah. Without a doubt. Yeah. And especially since, it's famously, and I'm quoting from our friend of the show, Larry Nemechek, said, contract negotiations in the summer of 1990 stalled. They didn't really know if Patrick was going to come back. And there we go. You know what I mean? So some definitely some wild and crazy stuff. So, well, cool. Yeah. All right. I'll keep it moving forward. And again, I'm going non-traditional.
Are we going to the bottom first?
Oh, the bottom first.
We alternated last time.
Yes, we did. All right. Well, I did pick a couple. When it came to the bottom, I picked 3 that are probably pretty typical, and then I kind of opened the fire hose. But I'll save my opening the fire hose and ones for later on. My number 1 is season 5's Imaginary Friend. I think that's low.
That's fair. I didn't put it on there, but that's fair.
Yeah. I mean, my notes, as I said, I get the mining the whole, we have families on board, and as basically a slot in the dartboard. That's always the hacky bit in sitcoms, that like in a writer's room, they'll have a dartboard and like, who's the show going to be about this week? Thunk. Oh, it's going to be about so-and-so. What are they going to, or basically Mad Libs, even a great, any bad episode of TNG can often be punctuated by a really passionate speech from Patrick Stewart as Picard. And this, I wrote, it couldn't pull the stinker out of the diaper pile. And the episode is about, there's an ensign who has a daughter who has an imaginary friend because she's lonely, blah, blah, blah. Then the little girl's imaginary friend kind of comes to life, and you find out that she's evil and blah, blah, blah. I'll never forget that my friend Tamara, who, Peter, you know her, who has been my friend since junior high and always kind of tolerated my love of Star Trek even back then, was like, I happened to tune into an episode, and there was this little girl who had an imaginary friend, and she was evil, and she was going to tear the place up. And I'm like, oh, she watched an episode, but I'm like, why did she have to watch one of the worst episodes?
Yeah, why did you watch
and then
that
think,
one?
Well, this is what Star Trek is about. I'm not watching this shit.
Yeah.
So can't really win with that stinker. So
yeah, that's fair.
Yeah. All right, what about you?
All right,
a bad.
I am going to go with, at least for me, probably low hanging fruit. Manhunt. I think that's a season 1 or 2 episode.
Come on, but we even get Dixon Hill. But I got you. Season 2. Yeah,
I just can't. For me, a lot of the Loaxana Troi episodes are just super cringe. And so
especially as time goes by,
yeah, and it's like Majel Barrett's great. And like I don't hate the concept of Loaxana Troi, but like sometimes it's just like, oh my goodness.
Well, and especially in TNG, she's such a sexual predator, and it's like, oh well, there's a lady that and they were making jokes about it.
Especially this. That's what this episode is about.
Because they have that. They're in the they're at the forward stations. Data sitting in his chair, Wesley sitting in her, and Riker standing over her shoulder. He's like, that's right. She knows what she wants, and she lets you know. And I'm like, if this is supposed to be like 3 dudes talking in the locker room after a basketball game, you missed the mark. You know what I mean? So
it was like, it's just like she bounces between different potential partners, and it's just like, ugh. It's done better in Deep Space Nine. When she shows up for that,
and she locks onto Odo,
and she locks onto Odo. But like this one is just, this is one of those ones where like Loaxana is just not fun for me. Half-a-Life, she's fantastic.
Oh God! And well, with a guest star like David Ogdenstier.
Yeah, I mean, you can't help it. But like,
MASH, she's incredible. I don't know if you knew this, and I know you're probably not a huge pop music guy, but not the Antikins. What's the name of the damn fish people?
That's them. Or the Antedians. I think
Antedians, because the Antikins in the Sally, that was from season 1.
Yeah, the Antedians.
One was the lizard people, the other were the lion people.
Yeah.
The main Antikin, Antedian, who had a speaking role, rock and roll drummer and namesake of Fleetwood Mac. It was Mick Fleetwood.
Yep, I actually did know that. Yeah.
And he had to shave off his trademark beard in order to put the makeup on. That came from Larry's book.
Yep. I grew up with the old encyclopedia always near me, so I had that little detail. So
Larry in our hearts and minds. All right. Okay, great one for me. Season 6 is Starship Mine.
Oh, yeah.
Because it was Die Hard on the D, meaning the Enterprise D, not anything dirty.
Starship Mine is a fun episode, and also has that really fun time wonkiness in the runabout. So
no, you're thinking of.
I'm thinking Timescape. Yeah,
but you know what? It was also late season 6, so you're right. This was one of those episodes I remember very clearly. So this was the spring of '93. It was spring break, and I was getting up on a Saturday to get in the car with my mom and meet halfway because I was going to spend spring break at my dad's house. He lives in Metro Detroit, about 2.5 hours from here, so we would meet halfway. But because of a basketball game or some other kind of sport, it probably was a basketball game. This was on at like 1 o'clock in the morning or something ridiculous, but I taped all the episodes. So this was me very uncharacteristically staying up super late to watch this episode. Maybe that's why that episode is so, or that memory is so pivotal. But it's Picard running around the Enterprise D in his writing chaps, because the Enterprise docks at this station. They're going to basically, it's a car wash. They're going to wash
more or less.
They're going to wash the ship with this baryon sweep or radiation that pushes radiation through the ship, and it cleans out these baryon particles. So it's a very Star Trek-y explanation. We have a fun sequence in the beginning where everybody's scrambling around to get ready to leave, and Picard has a conversation with Beverly and Troy, and then he gets into a turbo lift with Data, and Data is practicing a routine about doing small talk, because it's and it's in direct reference to later sequences. I love it how Picard says, he says, I am attempting to fill a silent moment with non-relevant dialogue. Picard's like, perhaps it was a little too non-relevant. But it ends up, and I'm struggling to remember. So they go down to this, it's a star base that's on the ground, and the commander of the base is Commander, it's on the tip of my tongue, but the guy is great because he's very schlocky and is the king of it, and all the characters kind of dancing around it until it ends up taking a turn where you find out that the guys who work at the starbase, who are civilians, are actually criminals that are there to rob the Enterprise.
And one of them, dilithium resin, trilithium,
which we don't hear about again until
Generations.
Generations.
About Generations.
But the main bad guy on the base is actor Glenn Morshower, who has been in a lot of great stuff, including 24 and other episodes of TNG. And this was our first, followed quickly by an appearance on DS9, Star Trek appearance of Tim Russ, who we've had on our Spotlight program. He played a human mercenary in this, and then in DS9 in the fall of '93, beginning of season 2, he played a rogue Klingon, and then he
played a operations officer on the Enterprise B in
Generations, and then Voyager came just a few months after that. So great to see Tim Russ. Love Tim Russ. But it was a really fun episode, and it was funny. The actress who played the lead mercenary, I don't think I've ever seen her in anything else. But, for all I know, she could have been a soap opera star, and she still does it. I just haven't really looked into it. But anyway, love that episode. Super cool. And it was great to see Picard. And again, it's a lot of the suspend disbelief. Like, there's no way anybody could run through the Enterprise that quickly and just take the Jeffries tubes, get somewhere. Or at one point behind him, he cuts the rung so that they can't follow him. It's like, how the hell did he managed to pull that off so quickly? It was like, so a lot of it was like, okay, you suspend your disbelief a little bit, but watch Die Hard. What the hell is believable about him jumping off a roof in his bare feet with an explosion behind him? It's just, it was pretty fun.
Yeah, it's a great, I love that episode. It's great.
Absolutely. All right. What about a great one for you?
All right. The next one that I have on my list is Ship in a Bottle.
Ooh,
which is the second of the 2 Moriarty-based episodes.
Right. This is season 6.
Yeah, this is season 6. So the original Moriarty episode was Elementary Dear Data from season 2. This, in my opinion, is the superior episode.
No Dr. Pulaski.
Well, no, it has nothing to do with Dr. Pulaski. It's just it doesn't have the setup, and it has more of the intrigue. So there's more. So you have like Moriarty, who's been locked in the holodeck program buffer forever, and then Barclay accidentally turns it back on, and then shit hits the fan from there.
Right.
So I think it's really well done, and also an interesting way to like take Barclay's knowledge of the holodeck and then actually turn it into something that's useful for the plot and to help move the characters along. Like noticing that Geordi is not, left-handed, but
which
Moriarty
is so random. It's like I feel like that's something that no one but Data would ever pick up, because that's not. Yeah. I just don't. I'm left-handed, and people will occasionally go, "Oh my God, you're left-handed," because here on Earth, 10% of the population is left-handed. But I just never really pay attention to that kind of thing. So that's very much a Data kind of thing.
I use both hands, so so
I use both hands for things too.
Well, I'm like I
have two hands.
I switch depending on the task. So like I'm primarily right hand dominant, but I will use my left hand for lots of things.
Yeah, but that was accomplished by Data threw him something and he caught
Data throws something
other hand, and I'm like, that does seem, but that is that again, that's Data, so that really ties back to the character.
But like it makes sense that Data does it, but also having Barclay involved on this is just hilarious, because it's like holodeck being dumb.
He's going to find some way to screw something up. Yeah.
And yes, it does kind of follow a similar plot to Elementary Dear Data, where Moriarty is threatening the ship, but here the stakes are bigger.
Yeah.
Where it's like the Enterprise could fall into these two colliding stars, and oh crap. So there's kind of some exploration about like what makes Moriarty a person, although they more turn that on to Countess Bartholomew, because now she's sentient.
Right.
So they still have the same questions that you had in the first episode, but I think they look at them a little bit more interestingly.
Right.
And so that's part of why I think this is a superior episode, but also just Moriarty is written better. He has a lot more villainous presence in this episode.
Where it did seem pretty mild in that first
in the first one, he's a little bit more
I'll
mild.
hurt her if I have to. It's like, well, you kind of seem like the because he went on to play a butler character in something or other than Annie, I think, or whatever. He was in that show.
And like he's great in that. Like he does a really good job as Moriarty, to the point where like whenever I watch anything with Moriarty or read any of the books, that's the face that I see.
Right.
So, which was hilarious, because then when you go watch like Sherlock or the Robert Downey Jr. movies, and I'm just sitting there like, that's
or the young Sherlock that our friend Joe Colton and I talked about on Secret Friends Unite just recently.
Yeah. So, but otherwise, I really like this. It does have some stuff that could have lent to a sequel that we never got, where the Countess and Moriarty are in another little holographic thing, but it's constantly running, so they're not trapped per se.
Right.
I think that would have been something interesting to revisit. Either in like we kind of got a nod to it in Picard, but it didn't really do anything. But like maybe having Lower Decks give some tease or whatever, that would have been fun. But we didn't get that. But outside of that, it's just a fun episode that kind of explores a little bit about what it means to be human from a different perspective, but then also just gives our different characters some hilarious things to do. Because it's especially the moment where he just steps out of the holodeck and you're like, what? He can't do that, especially after the exceptionally violent way that happened in the first Dixon Hill episode, where
the Big Goodbye.
Yeah, the Big Goodbye, where the mobsters step out.
Notorious actor Lawrence Tierney, who apparently was really abusive to Will Wheaton on the set of that episode. I remember reading about that. Yeah, verbally, thankfully, because he's kind of a scary guy. All right, I'll take a stab. And again, low hangers from season 4. You can just tell, I think in particular when you get to the back end of a season, when you're below the slash with gas in the tank. And I feel like this kind of did it. I mean, the premise was very classic Star Trek.
Which one? I don't think you said the episode title.
I did. I absolutely did. Night Terrors.
It must have glitched for me.
That's okay. Yeah, Night Terrors season 4. I'll say it again. But yeah, it's a very typical Star Trek kind of premise. So we're trapped in a thing and we don't know how to get out of the thing. And if we stay in the thing, we're going to die. But everybody can't sleep, or they can't dream, and it was getting very esoteric. But the only person who still functions is Troi, and then of course Data, because Data's a robot android. But then she is having these visions where she's floating up or down, depending on how you look at it. This smoke tunnel towards these lights that say eyes in the darkness, and their worst floating effects, and even I think it says in Larry's book her clunky flying effects. And I likened it to worse effects than Superman of 1978, which were great at the time. And this was in 1991. But yes, this is enough to give you guessed it, night terrors about it. But yeah, everybody's having crazy dreams and blah, blah, blah. And Guinan gets a great moment where she has to fire off a gun into the, in the middle of the ceiling, 10 forward up. Which is who would fire a gun in the ceiling in a spaceship, but that was set, and she is it's the ridiculous looking gun. She's like, that was setting 1. Who wants to see setting 2? Because they're the fist fighting 10 forward. So yeah, I get it, but I almost feel like the overall premise of it would work better without we can't dream, and here's Troi floating in blah, blah, blah. It was pretty flat for me. Oh, that's my gosh. Bad stuff. All right. Back to now. I'm lost. You did a bad. I did a bad. Now back to good.
No, it's bad. I haven't had my bad yet. So,
gotcha. Oh, sorry. Okay.
So my second.
See how easy it is to get lost.
So my second bad one is another really low hanging fruit. Sub Rosa.
It's almost too low hanging. And I'll revisit that one in a moment, but not in a way that you would expect. So please continue.
I'm basically going subterranean for this one, but it's
he's digging.
So this is season 7. This is clearly when you can start to see that they're running out of gas, big time. It is an episode where it's like, hey, Beverly has she has an episode. Okay, nice. She's had some good episodes before, but this ain't one of them. We had some location stuff. It's like, hey, we have this quaint Scottish town set. Let's go do a show on it. Okay, fine. Let's save some money. Right. But then we get some really horrific Scottish accents, some very just painful stereotypes. And then, and I don't mean offensive, just why?
That's the offensive part.
Yeah, it's not, but everyone thinks offensive, and it's not necessarily. It's just oh, this is just poorly done. So, but we have that, and then the whole premise is there's this ghost that's possessing this candle that then kind of possesses the women in Beverly's family,
the Howard family, going back hundreds of years,
going back hundreds and hundreds of years, and where they just have ghost sex all the time, and it's just and
it's become more memes than, and again, it's also turned into people aping Bev as being a weed smoker because blazing Bev
because it's a green candle and all, and so they're making all these jokes, and it's
very unkind to poor Gates McFadden.
Yeah, and it's just one of those this is just dumb. And it really doesn't add anything to the character. It kind of harms the character unintentionally.
Right. And for a character that was always a struggle to get anything on screen, that was, she had really great episodes like The Host, which introduced us to
The Host, or Remember Me, I think.
Yeah, exactly.
Where she's mostly by herself in that warp, in the static warp field. She has some really, really good episodes.
And then
there's this.
No,
and so it's just this is not good. No. And even everyone else in the episode, there's just not a lot for them to do. And so they're just kind of there a little bit,
right?
But it's
I could barely remember. I think Riker had some scenes on the bridge.
There's barely a B plot.
In the last act, Data and Geordi, because they've been on the planet the whole time, get attacked by the reanimated corpse of Bev's dead grandmother. It's just knock it off.
It's just
knock it off.
It's a trip and a half. And if you're watching TNG for the first time, unless you feel the need to be a completionist, go ahead and skip.
It's okay. And trust me, when it comes to season 7, I'll be revisiting in it, like I said, a less than typical way. All right. A favorite of mine, again, going back to the top of the stack, a rare bright spot from season 2 is Contagion, which is one of our first great real great Romulan episodes. So this great cat and mouse game where the Enterprise, a personal friend of Picard's, Captain. I can remember the actor's name. Donald Varley. Captain Donald Varley commands it's Galaxy class. Now I'm going to forget the name of the
Yamato.
ship. The Yamato is destroyed by a computer glitch and this was in the cold open. So talk about setting the stage for some serious stakes, because that happens and a Romulan ship shows up. We get our first Star Trek appearance by beloved British actress Carolyn Seymour, who goes on to appear in Voyager as in Janeway's first holodeck. Her first holodeck program. She has the Victorian program. She's the evil governess. And then we get her as another Romulan in season 6 in Face the Enemy. She's the Romulan captain in that one.
Fantastic character.
Yeah, had some great performances in shows like Quantum Leap and just other great genre stuff. And then going back. So it was great to see her. She didn't have a huge role, but still what she did I thought was great. But a lot of the Yamato was destroyed. It's this
pretty horrifically too. You see the entire exterior hull just burn away. You're like,
exactly. Yeah, exactly. And people dealing with that, and then this cat and mouse game as Picard accepts the mission that Varley was on to find this ancient race, the Iconians, which has then continued.
First time we hear about them.
Yep. Because there was a great Iconian related episode of DS9 called To the Death, which had to do with Jem'Hadar soldiers capturing an Iconian gateway elsewhere, in the Gamma Quadrant, I believe. So I really dug this. We get our first Data death, I think, because he dies for 2 seconds here in reboots. But I really love this one. And as again, when you look at season 2, a lot of people want to be down. Oh, they're still finding their feet. And Dr. Pulaski sucked, which I disagree. I don't think
I like Dr. Pulaski. For what it's worth, I like Pulaski.
And I enjoyed Diana Muldaur as an actress. And that's actually one that we might get on the spotlight at some point. Kurt's been working on that one for me for a while. Nice. But anyway, I loved it. I was good to see. It was good to see. This was our first look at another Galaxy class ship in truth, because we saw the Yamato in that where silence has lease, but it was not really, it wasn't real, it was an illusion. So this was real for 2 seconds, then it blows up. I
don't think they showed the captain on the bridge though, because a lot of time, did they?
They did. He's sitting there when he's talking to him, and you can tell because the horseshoe behind him, they put red tape on it instead of the.
Okay,
yeah. So it was the same bridge.
Remember, because a lot of times when they show the bridge of another ship, it's not the same set,
right? Or it could be I'm taking this from my ready room, and it's the same, because you would imagine the ship would be very similar,
like in Deep Space Nine when they bring in what's it in the Hardest Hue to Hold or whatever it was, the episode where we get the kamikaze Jem'Hadar ship and it blows up the Galaxy class.
You're right. In the Jem'Hadar, the season 2 finale.
In that episode, we see the bridge of that ship, and it's not the Galaxy
right.
class.
Unless they were trying to tell us it was the battle bridge. Regardless,
no, it was because it was after Generations. That's why.
Oh yeah, and they had destroyed the set. Yeah, absolutely. All right, cool. All right, what about you?
Okay,
give us a good one.
Another good one. You're gonna laugh. Cupid.
It's fantastic.
Yeah,
fantastic episode.
I know that I'm not picking the episodes where I'm like, oh, there's social commentary. There isn't in this one necessarily.
Yeah.
But as I've said, Star Trek isn't all about that. There's also just humanity, and this one is. It's kind of a cheeky romance episode,
very much,
and you have Q involved, so it amps it up to 11 of just levels of silliness, but silliness in a good way. It has so many quotable things. My family and I always quote when something's going wrong, "Sir, I must protest. I am not a merry man." We do that all the time. Or when the bit comes up where Worf smashes the lute because Geordi's playing it horrifically, and then he smashes it, definitely does, and it's sorry, no, you're not.
And that is riffed off of, as I'm sure I've mentioned, that comes from the 70s comedy classic Animal House. John Belushi does that to guy who was actually a recording artist in the 70s, Stephen Bishop, who has recorded some songs you have probably heard.
Probably.
But he does the same thing. The guy is singing, I gave my love a chicken that had no bone in it. It just reaches down and smashes it. So, yeah, that was a definite riff. But, yeah, it was good stuff. Jonathan Frakes tells a famous story that in the climactic fight scene in the end, his bow staff shattered and bits jammed into his eye, and they had to take him to the ER in his costume. And people were like, people probably didn't bat an eye because, you're in North
LA,
Hollywood. So what the hell difference does it make?
So, but yeah, there's just lots of silly, fun stuff, like the scene where Q starts giving them parts of their costumes, like
when Picard's doing his speech,
a bird, and it's just there's just so much silliness.
I never figure out what that was supposed to be. That he was, but
it's like a chicken leg or something. But it's like it's so silly, and we have a great performance from Vash.
Yeah.
She does a great job. John Delancey is once again hilarious.
Right.
There's also just the fun bits where like Vash and the crew of the Enterprise, they know what story they're in, and they're just like, we're not going to play your game, Q. We're going to do our own thing. Like Vash is like, well, I made Marion obviously, but I'm going to marry the sheriff because screw this, I don't want to mess with this.
Yeah.
And then Q's just like, and Q's just like, wait, what? And so there's just all of this just absolute ridiculousness, and it's just a fun character episode. It's
totally.
Mostly a Picard Q episode with Vash thrown in because everyone else is kind of there. They don't really do all that much, so it's not really an ensemble episode, but it's just a lot of fun and just very, very silly.
For sure.
And I think it's great. So
yeah, absolutely. All right, back to the bad. I consider this to be relatively low-hanging fruit, although, again, it's kind of some cute moments, but this is season 6 Rascals. This was
I actually like that episode.
Well, hopefully it's not on one of your
It's not on my list. But.
I did say, there's definitely some cute moments, like when, again, the premise of it is that 4 crew members, so we have Data, Keiko, Ro, and Guinan get reduced to the age of pubescent children, age 10 or 11.
Yeah.
And you get some kind of cute moments, like at one point Picard, and it's funny, he comes back and he replicates himself his same uniform that's the same size and stuff, and that's kind of cute. And then he is faking out the villains, which I'll get to in a second, by hugging Riker and accidentally calling him number 1 and saying he's my number 1 dad, which was cute but stupid. And then, Ro gets some nice character moments with Guinan, the child Guinan actress who later went on to play the younger version of Whoopi's character in I think Sister Act 2. So it's like, wow, that's kind of a cool symmetry. Because I love Ro and I want to see more Ro, but we mostly see the young actress playing Ro in this, but it didn't really outmaneuver a really nonsensical premise. Like, it reduced them to children, but they still have their same brain patterns and personalities and abilities and blah blah blah. And then the plot hole of Ferengi mercenaries that are flying, that have surplus birds of prey, which obviously was just an excuse to recycle existing footage of a bird of prey. And they're making them super villainous, like, we're going to kill everybody here so we can get, steal your ship and sell it. Again, very early, we've talked about this in the past, but very early after the Ferengi were invented, and I think Denise Crosby said this in the TNG panel on the cruise just this past year, that Armin Shimmerman, when I looked at Armin Shimmerman dressed as the first Ferengi in The Last Outpost, which is very early season 1 episode, she busted out laughing. And it was then determined that there's no way that Ferengi could ever seriously be taken as villains. And they take a stab at this here, but it's way late, and it still doesn't turn it around, because all they really want is money, and money can come out of a replicator, so who cares? Yeah. You know what I mean? So while I had some nice moments, and I get that you like it, but when I was looking at the list that I shared with you, I'm like, I don't know where this one ranked, but I'm like, this really just, even as a Star Trek plot and premise, it doesn't stack.
Oh, I mean, the Ferengi plot is just absolutely no, it's ridiculous. But I just enjoy the ridiculousness of the especially Picard with Riker and all of that. So totally get why you'd put it there. So.
Right. All right. Your turn.
All right. Bad. Another low-hanging fruit. Season 1, Code of Honor.
Ooh, the lowest.
Yeah.
The lowest. And again, I'll revisit in a minute. You'll see.
It's subterranean once again.
Yeah.
But
That shovel keeps going.
Just on the other end. So we went from season 7 to season 1. This is the infamous episode that
and again has been discussed in a lot of panels, and I think it was in the center seat that he says if somebody would have pitched this in season 3 or 4, I think there would have been pushback.
Yeah, it would not have been done.
Yeah.
And it, like, because everyone was still finding their feet, and like you kind of get what they were doing at the time, but it's just like, this just doesn't work. It's very stereotypical and not in a good way, because you can do stereotypes for comedy and they can work, but like this doesn't. And this is not like, we're not trying to be funny either. So this was just bad. Yeah, there's not a whole lot I can say about this other than like, now we're gonna have this dude decides that he wants Tasha as his wife, and then has her fight his wife for him, and it's a match to the death. She doesn't die eventually, and then they expose him for being a douchebag. Big surprise. End of episode, everyone leaves happy. Okay. It's kind of a shite plot. And then it's just, yeah, there isn't really much good to say about it. It's not a good episode. It really isn't. And over time, it has not aged well at all, to the point where like the entire cast and crew now look back and be like, yeah, no.
Yeah. It was like, yeah. And it comes back around again, which I'll say in a moment here, but, yeah, you know what? I'll tell you what. I'm going to flatten this out because my last 2 bads are non-traditional in the format. So my last 2 bads, and then we'll circle back and we'll do a good. kind of piling on. But my last 2 bads are the majority of season 1 and the majority of season 7. I took a shotgun approach. So I took your Subterranean and then I flooded it in like a drain field for a septic tank, which I described to me recently. But yeah, season 7, you singled out Sub Rosa, but let's not forget we had Eye of the Beholder, Inheritance, Bloodlines. They were just done. They were done, you know, because if you think about season 7, we got Gambit, which was a 2-parter, which we really enjoyed. All Good Things is great. The conclusion to Descent was okay, but again, it's a 2-parter and it's a cliffhanger.
Strike was amazing.
Yeah, but really, it was just like to have so many stinkers in a row with this great cast and the show that's been so amazing for the 6 years that preceded it. Sort of, we'll say 5 of the 7 years was really great, because my second of one, to keep piling on, is most all of season 1.
Yeah.
Because I'm really of a mixed mind about it, because, you know, I was 11 years old when this came out. I was coming into my own as a Star Trek fan. There were some great performances, great first episode. You know, Patrick Stewart is Patrick Stewart. His stuff was amazing. I, came to look onto the character of Riker as kind of a father figure because I thought he was so great. But when we have Code of Honor, When the Bow Breaks, The Naked Now, where Troy calls Riker Bill, they were trying to find their way in a way that no subsequent series within their first season failed quite as badly at. I think I would be so much to say.
Yeah.
So yeah, I know, again, that's me shooting outside of the rule set. I'm not going to say I won't bring it back for another show, but that was one that I thought, there's too much in here that's too bad.
Yeah.
That I can't just let her rip.
Which I will then just kind of throw out one of mine, which I had Justice, which is a season 1 episode.
Yeah.
Which was Wesley trips on flowers and they're going to kill him.
Right.
It's just
and the Edo are people that just they have sex everywhere, and yeah. It was just. And again, I think we heard from David Gerald when he had him on the show, and other people have said in ways that they were trying to find ways to liken the first season of TNG to familiar things within TOS to kind of try to build an audience. And I think when you look at it at a modern lens or even a lens of the time, it just didn't translate because the 60s versus the 80s.
And like Way to Eden, just that just doesn't work. And you're doing it now in the 80s, and it's just like, it didn't work then, it didn't work now. It won't work in present day in the 2020s. So
Right, exactly. The roaring 20s. Yeah, exactly correct. So, all right. Well, let's talk about some good for at least a minute. I have two left.
I have two. Yeah.
I loved season 6's Second Chances.
Oh yeah.
Not an amazing episode for I wrote plot holes that you can fly a Dyson sphere through. You can replicate somebody and all of their brain patterns and their matter and create a completely separate, identical individual with the transporter if you bounce the beam the wrong way or something. That's ridiculous even for Star Trek, I will admit. But Riker's my guy. His relationship with Troi is one of those things that is evergreen to the series. So there's I won't say there's always something to explore. Actually, there's almost nothing to explore because they're friends, they support each other in dating other people, and it's great. But when a young, horny version of Riker comes along that's 8 years his less than socially developed and decides he wants to bang Troi and he pulls it off, man, haven't we all been there? But I like seeing the explore, and then that great conversation that Riker and Troi have. Riker, not Tom Riker, who's the new guy. So Gold versus Red. When Red has this conversation with Blue, which would be Troi, about, hey, if he had been me, don't you think he would have done a lot of the same stuff? And in the end he does. And I enjoyed that part of it. The mission with them retrieving a database, and then Red has to rescue Gold, and it was just, I could have done without all that. But I mean, obviously you have to have a reason for them hanging around anyway. So yeah. I mean, I kind of get that part. That's not that big of a deal. But yeah, no, I totally dig that episode, and I always go back to it because, again, love lost or someone that you had feelings for, but the friendship, the romance or the romantic aspect of it turned into a friendship, and then what would it be like if a younger version of you came along? I like that part of it. So
it's very, very intriguing thought experiment.
Right. All right. What do you got? Something good.
All right. Next one that I have is Yesterday's Enterprise. So a little bit more on the obvious side, but
one of Larry's perennial favorites.
Yeah, season 4.
Yeah. Three.
Season 3. Yeah, my bad. Season 3. It happened mid season 3, towards the end. But this was one of our first ones where we got a script that came from outside that then got further developed.
The slush pile.
Got from the slush pile, further developed into a full story. Lovely version of like an alternate timeline thing. This was one of the first times that we actually looked into that concept of how it would work with time travel and stuff. The rules aren't always followed later, but
that's how timey-wimey stuff works, right?
No, temporal mechanics have a rule set, but anyway.
Right.
So we get this. We also get a wonderful guest appearance reprisal of Denise Crosby as Tasha Yar. This is where we get kind of the idea of here's what Tasha could have been if she had gotten better writing rather than just what she had in season 1. And when she gets better writing, like, she's a good character.
Yeah, absolutely.
She really holds her own through the entire episode. And she's not, she's not cliche, she's not chintzy, she's not cheap. Like, she actually does some really solid stuff, and like seeing different versions of the characters, like Picard being more of a hard ass,
being more of a warrior than a diplomat,
more of a warrior than a diplomat, but still having that friendship with Guinan. Riker being a little bit more stern. Data's still kind of Data, but just seeing that and the war with the Klingons and how all of that pans out. And even just the visual set design where how they change the Enterprise to give you that feeling of this is a different place. We're totally different. What if the Enterprise was designed to do something different? And I thought they did a really good job turning the lighting down. Now, I always complain about having the lighting down all the time, but it does work here.
It does here in no other place where you have to turn the lights off in your living room to watch a show. We're rewatching the Netflix Marvel stuff right now. So Daredevil, it's like I can't even see what's going on because it's the middle of the day and I have a window open and the glare means I can't.
Yeah, but even then, like, they don't always have the lights down for every single shot. They have them for the dramatic shots, and then you can see more when they change angles.
Yes.
So that's really well done. Changing like how 10 Forward looks, so it looks like a military mess hall. Giving people like weapon belts and changing the uniforms. Yeah. Like, there was a lot of thought put into this episode. And then also just getting like the Enterprise C, like a ship that you never thought you would see. All of a sudden,
Right.
here it is.
One of my favorites, the Ambassador.
Yeah, the Ambassador is a great.
The bastard child of the Enterprise D and the Enterprise A.
Yeah,
in a lot of ways.
Yeah, and like hilariously, it was the I remember just tangentially when Star Trek Online brought a follow-up episode where you bumped into because in theirs the Enterprise C didn't make it all the way through the rift. They got sidetracked and whatever. But there was a point where you actually get to pilot the Enterprise in part of the mission. So it's the only time in the game that you have officially piloted a ship named Enterprise.
Man.
And it was the Enterprise C. So there's just a soft spot for this particular timeline and characters and all that because there's just a lot of connection that it allowed because it came from the fans. There's a lot of fan connection to it. So and also it's just really well done. Has some good speeches from Picard, really good interaction with him and Guinan. And we get a really solid performance from the actress who plays Rachel Garrett. Who everyone was like,
Trisha O'Neill.
Yeah, Trisha O'Neill was like, first female captain. Not technically, but the first on-screen female captain of an Enterprise. So that
that really got fleshed out.
Yeah,
and really got to see her.
She was portrayed as a competent captain. And I thought that was a really good job. She wasn't really stereotypical or what have you. She was a competent starship commander who knew what she was doing, had the same traits as somebody like Kirk or Sisko, to an extent Picard, but like you could see, and Sisko didn't exist yet technically, but like at least writing wise, but you can see like those elements that built those characters. You can see those in Garrett, and then she's obviously a little bit of a template for Janeway later on.
Right. Yeah,
but just solid episode.
Nice. All right, I'll give my last good one, and then how many bad ones do you have left?
I have just one because I threw Justice. Justice out when you said all of season one.
Very good. All right. Well, my final one is, and this was a little bit of the teenager in me, but was The Perfect Mate from season 5. Overall, I thought season 5 had a lot of episodes that really crushed it because, again, this was also when I became a regular viewer. Mm-hmm. Seasons 1 through 4, I was very irregular. Season 4, I didn't watch much of it all, but I love this one because, and it's funny because it's Famke Janssen before she and Patrick Stewart were in the X-Men film, which was in the year 2000. This came out in 1992. Her name of her character is Kamala or Kamala. I can't quite remember. Long before our former vice president. The sexiest thing to ever hit the D. But she seduces Riker, steals Picard's heart, and even gets a rise out of Worf. It was a great story. Yeah, it was a great story about arranged marriages and
and duty.
Love, and duty and love you don't want to find, but you do find, but then you can't have it. And I think Sir Patrick just knocked it out of the park. Mm-hmm. And as did Famke's character, which again, I don't feel like I saw her in a ton of other stuff until she became Jean Grey in X-Men in the year 2000. Of which she was great and iconic and was the first actress to really put her feet into that role, which we may be seeing again if the rumors pan out to be true in Spider-Man Brand New Day, where Sadie Sink may become Jean Grey. That is a prevalent rumor that we will find out about when it happens. But yeah, absolutely love this. And again, about duty and loyalty and about unrequited love. And Picard saying, I'm really a very boring person. I fall asleep every night with an old book in my hands and it just doesn't stop because she's in love with him. Mm-hmm. And then he's in love with her, but he just can't. He comes so close to finally, but he just knows that he can't. It's duty. He's got to do his Federation thing. So yeah, I absolutely loved it. Great performances kind of around the horn.
Yep.
So that's it for my good. Take us home with a bad.
Or do you want one more good? Because I have that too.
Oh, you want one more good? My bad. All right.
I have one of both.
Let's go. Let's go bad, good. So yeah, or no, good, bad.
Okay. So my last good one is Relics, season 5.
No, absolutely.
So this is an episode where we bring back a legacy character, in this case, James Doohan as Scotty. And the whole premise of the episode is finding value in that which came before. And so I think that that's a very poignant message, especially now, actually, more so than maybe when the episode aired, where you look at Scotty, who's been around, he's been out of the fight for 100 years. He comes back and he feels completely useless because technology has changed. Now there's a book of how to do everything. And, they kind of play up on Geordi following the book more than he normally does, so that there's tension in the episode. So I didn't.
Right.
So that's not my favorite part of it, but it works. And so there's tension of like Scotty being like, why are you doing this with a dilithium matrix? And Geordi's like, why are you messing with stuff?
Why? Knock it off. You're messing with my stuff.
You're messing with my thing. Stop. No. Like it makes sense. But and then you also have that really, really cool holodeck scene where, no bloody A, B, C, or D. And then he walks
eminently quotable.
And then he walks onto the TOS bridge, which
there was a great part of Michael and Denise's panel on the cruise this year where they described putting what they built and how they did. Oh my God, it was really great.
It's really fascinating how they made that happen. And then his conversation with Picard about, missing the past and having value in the old ships and all of that thing. And so you kind of get this and then Scotty ends up being like his ancient ship is the way that they're able to solve the problem of the Enterprise getting trapped in the Dyson sphere.
Right.
And so through that, you see Geordi start to see that like, hey, just because it's old doesn't mean it doesn't have value. And sometimes an older way of thinking about something might be the quote unquote new way to think about it, because the way that I'm currently thinking about it needs a new perspective. And that old perspective is a different one that actually looks at it from a lens that's helpful in this case. And so I think that was a really, really good and respectful way to look at that particular character, but also just a very, very human thing when we're talking about like children to parents, generations between generations, and what have you. And I think that I think it's a very poignant message then and now, and probably needs to be watched a couple more times.
For sure. Good deal. All right. Well, always end the opposite of what my dad always says in golf, always end with a good one. Let's end with a bad one.
All right.
What you got?
I couldn't make up my mind on these two. So I'll be short on the one. Menage a Troi. I hate that episode so much.
And again, Ferengi acting badly.
It's Ferengi and sexual predation, and it's just like
and another Loxana episode. Yeah. So you're kind of teeing it up.
It's the trifecta of I don't like
the trifecta, the Troi-Fecta.
Yeah, it's the trifecta of
Jesus.
Likey.
Oh, changing the name of the episode. It's the Troi-Fecta.
Yep. So like it's just like the Ferengi come and try to capture Loxana and Deanna and try to get them to marry him, and then you have Picard do this whole big performance, which gets memed all the time. It's hilarious. But he like starts quoting Shakespearean sonnets and you just see like Troi and Riker just like cracking up behind him. Like it's got funny moments, but is it painful? It's I can't watch it. And then my honorable mention, just because some of the reasonings behind some of the stuff that was done and how it gets taken is Who Watches the Watchers. It's not a bad episode per se. Like it's well done. There's lots of good character development, but there's just a premise behind it that I think gets pushed a little bit too much. Kind of like when I was talking about back in TOS, the Let That Be Your Last Battlefield. Like there's stuff that I like about it, but there's a way that you go about it that's not great. And so
it's kind of 10 pounds of shit in a pound.
Yeah. So for instance, for Who Watches the Watchers, the big whole premise of the episode that it kind of hinges upon at a couple points, it's not the prime directive. That's the surface level, but the underlying part is, and one of the parts to put this in their list was like religion bad. It's like, okay.
Yeah,
that's
it's too much of a brush. Lots of stuff is bad, but
I understand where you're coming from, but that's a little bit too general and not nuanced. And so I don't think that that's a healthy way to look at it. Where it's like all religion bad. It's like, well, certain religions with certain things, sure, but you can't just paint that brush without actually having a conversation with it. And there's a point in the episode where you literally have Picard say like, I'm not going to condemn them to the Dark Ages and ignorance and da 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 da. And it's like that's a very pop culture look at the early Middle Ages, and it's not not exactly historically accurate. So there's just, that's the reason why I say this one is just like with Let That Be Your Last Battlefield. It's not necessarily the episode itself. It's what it spawns that I don't like. And so that's why it kind of
Yeah.
gets put on the list.
Fair. I like. All right, cool. Well, that is Star Trek: The Next Generation, everybody. And again, it's our take. I encourage you. If you're one of those folks newer to Star Trek, found our show, you're watching the episodes or series in perhaps not a linear fashion as the prophets would appreciate, and you're waiting to get into TNG. Now you've got a little bit of extra insight, and you can know at least two guys who kind of know what they're talking about, kind of what we think about certain episodes. But anyway, that's our show. We will be back next week to do this segment about Deep Space Nine, which we're pretty excited about. And we're returning to, now I have to look at the schedule, I believe we're returning to random episodes. So
I think we are,
we'll get into that when we do that. But anyway, everybody, thanks for tuning in. Peter, where do people find you out there if they want to rip you for your list?
You can absolutely do that. You can find me on most social media at Petrus Aquinas. I don't say a whole lot, but you can poke at me and say, "Hey, your list sucked," and then I might say something. Otherwise, you can find me on our Discord. You can also find me over on ELH's Twitch and YouTube channel and Discord, where we do Star Trek Adventures role-playing games. And you can find me behind the scenes on Starship Excelsior. Speaking of which, we just dropped a new episode a couple weeks ago. So
cool.
It's kind of inside baseball, so you need to have listened to most of the other show for it to mean a whole lot to you. But it's still a good episode. So.
But you can do that. Maybe we'll even have James Heaney, our partner, who's been on the show. Maybe we'll have him back talk about
it.
And as always, you can find not only Secret Friends Unite, but myself. I am at the C3, TheCeeThree, and Secret Friends is Secret Friends pretty much everywhere that you go on the socials. Again, I'm also over on our Discord chatting, having, what I'd say, fun, safe chats about nerdy stuff. But as I had mentioned, drop us a line at secretfriendsunite@gmail.com. Let us know what you're enjoying Star Trek wise or anything that you're enjoying in pop culture. As again, over on our website, secretfriendsunite.com, you can find all of our content. Also, our audio pods on Apple, Spotify, anywhere you find podcasts, and then of course on our YouTube channel as well. All of those links are in the show notes. But yeah, thanks as always for tuning in. I'm going to tell you that sharing is caring, and to keep on trekking.
Peace and long life.
This podcast is part of the Secret Friends Unite podcasting network, available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and podcast services around the galaxy, as well as video on our YouTube channel. You can support Secret Friends Unite by becoming a Patreon member, get bonus programs and more over at patreon.com/secretfriendsunite. Join our Discord community for even more discussions on all things geek. For all the latest updates on Secret Friends Unite, make sure to follow us on Threads at secret.friends.unite and visit secretfriendsunite.com. Find our merchandise at TeePublic and Redbubble. Thanks for listening, and may the Force live long and prosper.